bird was just flying up there as a crow. Can you hear it? It was still, it's going, God, I was like, Lonan? Hi, guys. Welcome back for a very special balcony chat. It's going to be the last one ever, which for some reason, yeah, now I'm feeling quite emotional about this. I said that I wasn't going to make any more videos this month on my community tab. If you didn't know, I was making videos every week. I was hoping to make videos every week for Autism Acceptance Month. As an autistic creator, I just wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to make videos that were about me, that were really fun, and that made me really, really happy. And then I first, funnily, didn't think that I would have consequences to that decision, because, I was finishing my degree. I did finish my degree last week. I have been pursuing my Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing, and, I finished that. But what I wasn't expecting was that I'm moving. I can deal with, maybe being a little bit stressed in doing these videos when I'm finishing school, but I didn't expect that I'd be moving. I thought I'd be moving in a couple of months. So I've been a little bit surprised, and I was a bit disappointed that I couldn't make any more videos, but I'm making one right now because it's beautiful. The sun's going down. You can't see that, but the sun's going down, and I figured that I'm never going to make a video here ever again. And I know a lot of you have gotten really quite used to the balcony chats. I want to talk about how writing is going, failing goals, and feeling like shit because I failed all my goals, but also feeling happy that I am failing my goals. Okay, so I was supposed to be doing Camp NaNoWriMo in April, and like I said, when I made this goal, I said, you know what, it's going to be a little tough because I have schoolwork. I thought that I'd be done right before the 2-week point of April. So I was like, if I don't end up, I can't really do much, in that period, that's fine, because I only wanted to write 10,000 words. So I was like, I can do that in the last 2 weeks of April because I wasn't gonna move. And then all of a sudden I am moving. So I obviously have now abandoned that goal, which has kind of hurt my feelings, to be honest. Not that I was wrapping up my identity or anything in the goal, but that I was looking forward to it. And I thought I would have a very different month that I'm actually having, which is fine. It's I'm looking forward to it. It's good, I think, in a sense, to be moving back. And I'm happy about it. But I had created that goal, and I thought I was going to be able to do it because in March I wrote 10,000 words of Body Back. So I guess let's just introduce the project. I made a video talking about this project already, so I will link it in the description because I won't go over it too much. But it's a novella. It's a literary fiction adult novella called Body Back, and it follows this 21-year-old man named Harrison who is having a bit of a crisis in Las Vegas after he breaks up with his boyfriend when they weren't actually really dating, but they were definitely, they catch my drift. It was kind of either way, it's a breakup. He is now in Las Vegas, and he is just ready to move past that man. That man's name is Lonan, who shows up in my other books. So these names are probably very familiar to you because they are characters that I've been writing for a bajillion years, and they appear in a lot of my projects. And this, funnily, is actually a canon project. So the canon series of Fostered, I have a video explaining what Fostered is because Body Back belongs to that series. Fostered essentially is the series that I started writing when I was 13 and really undiagnosed autistic. I'm really a special interest in that one. A 13-year-old girl can write 600,000 words of a series in 1 year, and no healthcare professional is immediately like, yeah, you're on the opposite spectrum. When I went for my assessment, I told the lady that, the psychologist, and she was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. It has been a project that's followed me for a long time. So it had 6 main books, and those books follow this character named Reeve, and Reeve is a narrator in the spin-off of one of the spin-offs called Seventh Virtue. So if you know what Seventh Virtue is, you know what Fostered is. And Fostered has a spin-off called Mothwork, and Mothwork is a duology. It has 2 books, Mothwork and Feeding Habits, and now Mothwork also has a novella. So it goes Mothwork, Body Back, Feeding Habits, and there's going to be a Feeding Habits novella called Hallowed Bodies, which is going to be in Lonan's point of view, which is going to be the reverse of Body Back. It's going to be really fun. And then Seventh Virtue is the fantasy version of Feeding Habits, essentially. I started writing Body Back in late February. It was really more March that I was working on this project, but I had this conception for this project, and maybe it's silly, but like I've been really romanticizing like the early days of writing Body Back. Maybe because like I'm like a highly romantic person when it comes to stuff like this. Not actual romance, but like when it comes to romanticizing my life, like I am number one at doing that. It was actually a really terrible time for me. I won't go too in depth, and content warning, this is, you know, discussions of mental health and stuff, but I was going through like an inextricably difficult time during this time. Like it was when I was in reading break and I was having a bit of a crisis. And I don't usually have crises, like not anymore. I used to give like Lonan, like I was Lonan Clark for a really long time. So like, yes, I was always in crisis, but I've been relatively not Lonan-y. So like, therefore I have been good, right? Ever since we're making this about Autism Acceptance Month, ever since the autism diagnosis. Rachel's been on the up, but Rachel had a bit of an L late February. But for some reason I have been romanticizing the period so much because it was like so writer, and like I don't want to romanticize like coming up with like a book idea when you're not doing well. And like also like the other thing that I'm thinking of, my apartment heating broke, like, or no, you know what, didn't break. It's just my apartment doesn't have great insulation, and there was like a storm that weekend. It was a weekend, and I was kind of delirious because I was going through a difficult time, and also I was freezing cold. And like in that time, like I come up with this idea, and this idea Body Back, like when I reread my novel Mothwork, this is very confusing. This is just a very unedited, unscripted video. I'm sorry. But I had reread Mothwork during that reading break, during that time where I wasn't doing well, during that time when there was a storm. And when I had reread it, something overcame me. And I was like, dude, this story is so good. Which, you know, some of you might actually be following me from the time that I started writing Mothwork. If you have been following me from when I started, like when I conceived of Mothwork and like wrote it, and you're still here, like let me know in the comments. But there's like a storm cloud looming like over the golden. I gotta show you guys this. So you guys are looking at my face, and this is what I'm looking at. This is actually the perfect aesthetic for the story that I'm telling right now. Anyways, rereading Mothwork, when I reread it, it like really blew my mind. And it blew my mind because I'm the same age as the protagonist in Mothwork. Harrison is 21 in Mothwork, and I'm 21. I wasn't 21 when I wrote that book. I was 17, like mostly 17, 18. And like what's funny is like it just really struck me because I was like, wow, this is like, wow, like I really like premonished my future, like because how I was feeling was how he was feeling. And I was like, how did I manage to write me? Like how did I manage to write something that is a very niche content to relate to? Like how did I manage that? And it was quite a lovely experience. What I ended up doing is I was like, okay, I need to write with more Harrison, and I ended up writing Body Back. And this project, I don't know, has just meant a lot to me because, like I said, going through a hard time and then reading something that like really gets exactly how you're feeling, it just like really hit different. I was like, I have to like live in this more. And that's how Body Back came to be. And I've just been thinking about it, like, because I'm thinking about how freezing I was. I filmed some of my writing vlog finishing Seventh Virtue, I think. Maybe. No, I can't remember what video it was. It was finishing Seventh Virtue was when I was freezing, I believe. I was so cold. I was so not doing well. And then for some reason, like, I don't know, I just can't stop thinking about that. And like, it was like I created art out of it. And obviously that's romanticizing something that was not good for me and wasn't healthy for me. So I'm not saying that you should do that. It's just like, it's really abnormally beautiful right now with the rain misted over the foggy light. That's how I'm going to describe it. I wish you guys could see it. But anyway, I've just been thinking a lot about it because I haven't been able to write Body Back in the last week. I did a write every day in March, and I freaking killed that. I did really, really well with that. And I loved it. It's better than word count goals for me writing every day, actually, because if I only write one word, I'm like, well, I did the goal. And that makes me feel better. So I haven't been able to draft it because obviously I'm moving and I'm doing school, and I just feel like disconnected to the project, like surprisingly, like spending so much time on it, like, and so much, like I honestly I was like hyper fixated on it because I wasn't I wasn't going through a great time. And so like, I was like, what can I do? Like escapism. And that's kind of what I picked. And I'm not saying it was all good. Like if you follow me on Tumblr, you've probably been reading my tags. Like every day, like I was being woken up by this project. Like no matter how late I slept, I was being woken up at 8 a.m. with like Harrison in my ear, like, hey, remember me? And I was like, yes, I fucking remember you. I've been writing with you my entire life. Just shut up now. But like, I was really excited about it. And like, because I was like so deeply hyperfixated on it, it was like really impacting my life. And part of me like enjoyed that. And obviously part of me didn't, because I was exhausted all the time. It came to a place where I think I started to struggle a little bit, which is surprising, like, because this project hasn't been much of a struggle. A bit. It has been a bit, but it's at about 11,000 words right now. The last time I talked to you about this on my channel, I think I had only started chapter 2. I don't even think I'd finished chapter 3. We're on chapter 3 right now, and then it's called 24 Karat Harrison. If you follow me on Tumblr, you already know all of this information, so maybe follow me on there, because it's easier for me to actually don't follow me on I don't know. If you want to still respect me as a person, maybe don't follow me on Tumblr. But that's kind of like the update for Body Back. I haven't been able to write it, but it's also been a really important project for me developmentally, because like I did a lot of like firsts with Body Back, like, and I won't go too in depth with it, but like just personal firsts. Like I reconnected with myself as a human being while writing this story. And I know this sounds really lofty and like, oh, this book saved my life. But like, and I say this for every single book that I write, but like this one, like I deeply need, like, wow. This plus Palladium by Grace and Chance, his album, like smooshed together, like saved me in March and the end of February. So like, I don't know, I just feel deeply emotional about this project, and it's why I don't want to share a lot of it on YouTube. I'm fine with sharing it on Tumblr, but like, it's not like I love my YouTube audience. I think y'all are great, but I don't know. I think it's different when I'm talking about it versus when I'm writing it and you get to see my face. Like it feels like very personal. Funnily, I was able to write some Body Back for school. So I was doing it for a project. Like I had written a scene of it in class. Like I had come up with a scene idea while I was in class, and I was like, great, I get to write this for class now. And it was an argument between Harrison and his mother, Susanna. If you saw the writing update on Tumblr, the scene is in there, but like I edited it a lot. Like it's very different. Like, well, not very different, but it's much better. Is what I'm saying. And I did rigorous edits. Like my prof, like it was the first time talking to somebody that I don't know who also like knows things about writing, like about my characters, like about the fostered characters. Like I've never done that before, so it was like a lot of fun, like to hear her interpret Harrison. And I posted this on Tumblr, but she had said something like really interesting to me about his relationship with his mom, because his relationship with his mom isn't good. Like, kind of content warning here, like child neglect. Like she was a pretty, bad mom, like when she abandoned him as a kid and everything. And like he's only 21 now, and like she ended up getting her life together. She was really struggling herself, and then ended up getting her life together like sometime before the events of Mothwork, and she didn't look for him. And like it's like, ooh, it's like a wound. Like he's not happy with her, like I think understandably. And a lot of Body Back is him feeling parentless, even though he has this parent now, because he's like, I don't want to listen to my mom at all, because my mom has never been in my life. And this scene between, they used to be very close up until he was like 7, when she abandoned him, basically, which is really sad for Harrison. Honestly, he's had a very tragic life. This scene takes place in a bathroom, and the concept of the first chapter of Body Back is Harrison breaks into rich people's backyard, and when he breaks into this house, he goes into their pool and he floats in their pool like fully clothed, like, and he's just smoking a cigarette and is just chilling. I guess that's his idea of fun. It's like a Friday night. He's not partying in Las Vegas. That's what he's doing in Las Vegas. And it's something that he's been doing frequently. He does it a lot. But this time he gets caught. And the woman who owns this house, her name is Sadie. She has a husband who's a realtor, and Harrison has been making fun of him the entire chapter. Anyways, so he kind of identifies with this woman, who I think also identifies with him, because she is looking at him. She's like, you're 21. You're a child. Like, basically, you're a baby. Like, you're a kid. You're kind of pathetic. Like, I'm like, they're upset, obviously. But I think she in particular, Sadie, is quite sensitive to Harrison because she feels bad for him, because she can see in his face that he's really young. And that's something I would not have been able to write when I was 17. Because like the last time I wrote Mothwork, obviously I was very different. I had just started my writing degree when I was finishing Mothwork, and I've just finished my writing degree now that I'm writing Body Back. So like it's been quite some time. I never would have been able to understand that like I'm so young and Harrison is so young, and yeah, he is kind of pathetic in the eyes of these people because like he's done a 21-year-old thing, and they're like really like you can tell this is just like a bit of an irresponsible kid who doesn't actually mean harm, and he looks like a lot more terrified than I think he thinks he is. He comes across very vulnerably. So I was talking to my prof about this, and what the scene in chapter 2, like the chapter 2 opens with Susanna coming to pick Harrison up because instead of calling the police, they call his mom because he's pathetic and they like feel bad for him, right? Pathetic in like an empathetic way. Like they really sympathize with him. Not they. The husband hates Harrison because he's being mean to the husband, but Sadie like sympathizes with him. Anyway, so Suze comes down and is like, what do I do here? Like, cause they've literally reunited since he was 7. The last time she saw him was when, you know, he was 18 and it didn't go well and it was really, really bad. It was like she left at 7, saw him again at 18, and then didn't see him again until 21 when Lonan like accidentally ran into her, which happens in Mothwork. I've talked about this on my blog before. I'm not going to talk about the plot of Mothwork right now, but she's like, what do I do? Like because they've only been living together for 2 weeks at this point. She tries to like kind of like mother him a little bit, but like also he's 21, so she's like, he's an adult, but also like you can't do that. Like you can't break into other people's houses, Harrison. And so they have a bit of a conversation in this bathroom, and my prof had told me, she's like, you know, like something that I want you to think about in the revision is like going into this conversation knowing that Susanna is aware that she's being humiliated by her son, because what she was saying is like there's like this air of humiliation in your writing in this scene, and she was like, Harrison has a really active internal narrative, which is really interesting. So it's like almost like we need to see more like his mother, like in her reaction in the scene, like that she feels like, yeah, this is like a low point in parenting, and she's had a lot of low points. One of her big conflicts, like Susanna is quite a complicated character, right? But she feels bad about what she's done, but also like she was aware of what she was doing to an extent. Like, I mean, she was aware of what she was doing, like by not reconnecting with him. And it's a big question that he asks her and she doesn't have an answer for. So like, I just thought that was such an interesting question, humiliation and like that theme. And it was just cool to hear a professor talk to me about it. Like, you know, I see profs mostly as like collaborators, but it was just cool to like talk to somebody about like actual writing that I'm genuinely like quite invested in, and her feedback really helped me revise the shit out of that scene because there was something wrong with it, and I'm not going to read any of it here just because I'm still quite like, it's really emotionally volatile, that scene. I don't really want to read it. That I just wanted to mention because I was able to write some of it for my final project for school. One thing also is I midway through March, my Write Everyday March, my hyperfixated brain that was trying not to deal with life stress was like, okay, let me think about everything that makes Rachel happy at my brain, and it was rocketing, like doing a relay of ideas basically. And one of them was, okay, why don't we come up with another novella idea? So I won't talk about this one much yet because it's quite new, because I haven't really thought about it that much. But I was like, what if I did, okay, because I had this brainwave. What if I wrote the novella of Harrison alone in Las Vegas? Because I never wrote what he did in that time. All I did was writing him in New York City, which is the plot of Feeding Habits, is him living with Susanna in New York City. And actually their relationship's great in Feeding Habits. How did it get there? Like, what happened in Las Vegas? Because Suze moved him out of Las Vegas. She was like, we need to get out of here. Like, me and you, like, we're going to be a team and we're going to get out of the situation because you are a disaster. That's how they get to Feeding Habits. But we don't see any of that on the page. That's how Body Back came to be. So I was like, all right, Lonan's whole arc in Feeding Habits, Lonan's the other character. Lonan's whole arc is that he's a really bad person in Mothwork. Not like, a lot of it is his fault, and then a lot of it is his circumstances, and he's like still learning to take responsibility for that in Mothwork. He's struggling a lot with some really terrible things, and like he needs a lot of support in Mothwork. But basically Mothwork ends with them breaking up, which I guess I kind of mentioned at the beginning. Like Motherick ends with them breaking up, and he ends up actually dating somebody else. He ends up dating this woman named Eliza, kind of falling into this relationship, and Eliza is a complicated person. Lonan, like, is a bad person territory in Mothwork, and he's not trying to be better, and honestly he does some bad things so he can get what he wants in Mothwork, because that's all he's thinking of. He's not thinking about Harrison. He's not thinking of the consequences. He's like, I'm thinking of what's going to make me feel better as soon as possible, and nobody else. By the end of Mothwork, Harrison leaves him, but when we start Feeding Habits, Lonan is a much better person. But like, how did we get to that point? So that's where the novella came into play, because I was like, all right, if Body Back is getting Harrison to a point where he's a much worse person in Feeding Habits, because Harrison is a much worse person in Feeding Habits, then Hallowed Bodies, which is the title of the novella for Feeding Habits, Hallowed Bodies is going to show us how Lonan becomes a much better person from Mothwork, which is great. We're reversing them, because Harrison has always been the good person, but out of the two of them, and Lonan has always been like the morally gray, problematic son, right? My problematic son, my problematic fave. I've been calling him that for forever. But like, how did they switch roles is a really interesting question. So that's Hallowed Bodies, and it's going to deal with, I think, a relationship. Lonan has a really complicated relationship with mothers, because his biological mother did not raise him. She was not a part of his life, like, at all. Like, this has been canon, like, from the original books. Back when this was a dystopian, Lonan didn't know that he had a different biological mother in the original books. I don't know if that's not really the same in these books. Well, they're still canon. I had talked about that earlier, and I never finished my thought. These books are canon because they had gone from, like, when book 6 of the series turned into literary, Mothwork is an offshoot of something that happened in book 6. So these are like the only canon bits I have left, because otherwise Fostered is just now in Seventh Virtue, which is the alternate universe, the AU. This has been fun to go back to canon, right? But Lonan's childhood has been pretty complicated. He was raised by another woman. I want Hallowed Bodies to explore that relationship, which I have never explored. His relationship with the mother who actually raised him. We'll also explore his father, who's a really complicated person. Like, it just, yeah, it's been like a major part of Lonan's psychology from the beginning of time. And then also going to be exploring Reeve, who is Lonan's sister. They share that mother. It's going to also sort of weave in the old version of this book that I meant to write back in 2019 called Houses with Teeth, which I've talked about now because it's a reboot. But back in 2019, I had rushed the end of book 6 of Fostered, which rushing the end ended up making me write Mothwork. But anyway, I rushed the end so I could start writing with Houses with Teeth, and then I never actually wrote it. But I had this idea that, because at the end of book 6 of Fostered, Reeve ends up abandoning. She goes through a lot of traumatic things at the end of book 6, and she ends up running away from her friends. Like, she's in Cincinnati and she just boots out of there. She's like, bye. Like, I don't want to talk to any of you. And she ends up hitchhiking to New York City. And so Houses with Teeth was the original plot was that Lonan was supposed to find her in Houses with Teeth. And I want to bring that into Hallowed Bodies, because I don't know, it's just interesting to me. Like, the sibling relationship was so important in Fostered, and it's still important, like, especially now that we have Seventh Virtue, it's become a lot more important. But because I've been writing so solely on, like, with Lonan and Harrison over the last 4 years or whatever, it's just been all about their romance, or lack thereof. I haven't really written as much with Reeve and, like, his sister, but, like, their siblingship was super important. It also went super toxic in the original books. Like, by the time book 5 rolls around of Fostered, their relationship is like, woi, I don't, guys, like, but, like, it's super important to them. So I get to kind of write Lonan looking for her sister again in Hallowed Bodies, but he can't find her. Originally in Houses with Teeth, he does find her, but my idea is that he doesn't find her in Hallowed Bodies, which kind of ruins his life a little bit, but it's okay. All right, I have been rambling on and I'm losing the lights. So let's do a bit of a reading. Just a final balcony reading. I'm not gonna cry in this video. It's gonna be fine. Everything changes. Take your time, Rachel. Take your time. All right. So this is a section of Body Back chapter 2 where Harrison is thinking about Sadie and aligning himself with Sadie, who's the woman who owned that house, right? Because his whole thing, chapter 1's called Living Picture. His whole thing is that he lives a living picture. He is a living picture. The first paragraph, he's a living picture. He's like, oh, I'm art, is how Harrison is referring to himself. So he knows that he's like an object. He doesn't feel like a person in that first chapter. And so he meets this woman who's also like that. And so he ends up aligning himself with her because she has everything she could want, just like he has everything he could want. But they are not happy because they are just like caricatures. They're just in a living picture. So this is that excerpt. Before I get into these excerpts, I don't usually give this disclaimer, but I have to do it in every single video now because some people just don't understand. These are first drafts or near first drafts. Don't critique my writing in the comments. If you critique my writing, I'm going to block you from my channel, like kindly. I'm not asking for critique on these excerpts. If I was, I would let you guys know. And it's not that I'm not open to critique. It's just I don't care for critique on this project right now. I'm not editing it. Don't critique my work, please. Thank you. Sadie walks dogs, sure. But what else does she do? A beaded tapestry of a blue heron hangs in the foyer. Did she make it? The bird's eye is onyx black, something unfurling there. Maybe the urge to spear a minnow. Maybe just deadness. If Sadie didn't make it, what did she do in this house? Nearly everything is handmade, but certainly purchased. The pottered mugs shaped like seasonal fruit that she vigorously plops tea bags into. The Russ Shobi rug that snags under Harrison's socks. The ringed vases fluted with dead baby's breath. How does she know life in this catalog home? Besides the numbing daily walks with dogs, the repetitive brushings, she's as fucked as he is, isn't she? Trapped in this living picture. So Harrison's voice is quite fun in Body Back because it's glittery, it's literary, it's poetic, but also it's really, like, at points it's also goofy. Like, he curses a lot of narrative, he asks himself a lot of questions, he goes in like random directions and tangents, and so we get a lot of his personality, but also we get this sense of, yeah, this is a living picture, right? A fun part about this excerpt is the heron there. Heron hangs on the foyer, which is actually I guess a future Easter egg for Feeding Habits, because Feeding Habits happens after Body Back, but Lonan watches a nature documentary about a heron that is preying on fish. So this is kind of Harrison talking about what he doesn't want his life to turn into, and he's also kind of making fun of the man who owns this house. His name is Nash, Sadie's husband. And Harrison's talking about how he can't handle the easiness of his life. I shared like the first part of this excerpt, and that was at the beginning of the chapter. This is at the end of the chapter. We're kind of mirroring it with the same literary device, which I can talk about more later too, if you guys want to see more analysis videos and how I choose what techniques to use. Tomorrow, Harrison will again wake up in Suze's easy apartment, eat her easy turkey bacon, drink an easy cup of dark roast. He'll do this for the rest of his life, probably. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Harrison's got no kingdom. The best he can do is steal Jeremiah's cigarettes, float in an aquamarine pool that doesn't belong to him any more than Lonan's aquamarine eyes ever belonged to him. He's got no more power than a dead car battery. No glory. That's right. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Amen. So this next excerpt is a real fun one because Susanna takes Harrison. She does this thing at the end of chapter 2. Chapter 2, oh God, what is the title of chapter 2? I can't remember it now. Chapter 2, at the end, she is like, okay, my son is not taking responsibility. She tries to be very gentle. Like, if you've ever watched Bates Motel, like, she's trying to be like Norma to Norman, like, right? Like, trying to be gentle, you know, like, maybe too gentle, right? Like, she's trying to be helpful. And she ends up talking to him and is like, all right, I need you to take responsibility for this. And he's not taking responsibility for it. He actually gets quite upset with her. And she can't handle it anymore. So she's like, okay, we need to do something where you're actually going to, I don't know, fix what you've done. So what she ended up doing is she ends up driving him to Lonan's apartment because they're both in the same city. They're both in Las Vegas. So Lonan lives in this apartment with his girlfriend, Eliza. So she drives him there, and he gets very upset when this happens, which understandably probably not the right move. I kind of understand Suze's logic because Harrison really is being quite dense. Like, he doesn't want to listen to her, but like, she's like, there are consequences to your actions. Like, I'm trying to help you so you don't, like, you know, ruin your life. And he's not listening to her, and he doesn't want to. So he gets quite upset that she does this because he's really not ready to face Lonan again. So this is him thinking about that. Perhaps Jesus would enter that apartment like it were his father's temple. But Harrison is tired of gods, of ghosts, of men. He repeats this to himself as he hustles through the rain. No gods, no ghosts, no men. His teeth chatter. His hands shake. He's not wise. He never wants to be again. No gods, no ghosts, no men. It's easier this way. No need to contemplate the open window overlooking the parking lot. No need to contemplate who lives there now, who makes a bed there every morning, who drinks his coffee with half a cream, no sugar at the breakfast table, who grinds an ink stick to practice his new interest in calligraphy, who reads poetry on the balcony every Wednesday, Who finishes a 1,000-piece puzzle in an afternoon? Who wears Susanna's angel pendant and says he bought it vintage? Who takes up pottery, herb gardening, darts whenever he feels like it? Who sleeps with both eyes closed at last? No need to contemplate what might happen if he spared one glance, who he might see if he just looked back. Harrison, you thought about him a lot. Like, he's like, I'm not thinking about him. He's thinking about him a lot. He always thinks about him a lot. So this next one is from that chapter I remember is called Immaculate Mary. And a big part of it, if you couldn't tell, like from the beginning, is contemplating Harrison's relationship with Susanna, so son and mother, to Mary's relationship with Jesus, so son and mother. And Harrison is contemplating that a lot because religion is a really important thing to Lonan. It's not an important thing to Harrison, but because he feels directionless without Lonan, he's learned everything about Lonan's religion, which is kind of romantic. But anyways, so this next one is from chapter 3, which is called 24 Karat Harrison, which is Harrison now being quite upset about what Suze did. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to live like a completely different life. I want to be somebody else. So he becomes 24 Karat Harrison, which is like the 24 karat gold version of himself. And what is Harrison then? With the fur coat cinched against his body, he could be polished too, couldn't he? Sure, he isn't a gilded icon, but maybe he sees Jesus in his face right now because he has the potential to be, or because at their cores, they're both sad men. His hair doesn't have to look like Susanna's, but instead like the young bark of cinnamon, and his eyes, they're not his father's, but his own, an unmarred pool of teal. Maybe he's a little rough where he should be suave, but that's hot nowadays, isn't it? Besides, if Jeremiah sees something angelic in that mirror, then yeah, Harrison could see it too. Forget his cryptic mouth, his hair that's too long, as Susanna pointed out, his eyes and the way they're wounded, not like a deer's in headlights, but like a deer's in death. Forget the scar across his forehead, the way another man's hands used to touch it, not like it was lightning, but a pathway to some better place. Sure, Harrison's no Christ, no Jacob, no God, but why should he be? He's here under the tungsten bite of Jeremiah's chandelier, a man in shameless excess, eyes more spangled than this country's flag. And he could stay here, couldn't he? He could enjoy staring at himself, not like he's bronze, but like he's pure gold, which I think is the first time he's seeing himself, like, as 24 Karat Harrison. And he's like, yeah, that's me, baby. This is another one where he's staring at himself on the opposite end. He's not in acceptance of himself as 24 Karat Harrison. He's actually really struggling to figure out his face. Like, he really flip-flops in this chapter, and this is one of those moments where he's feeling really deeply insecure. Harrison, he mouths to himself in the mirror. The bathroom is filmy, or maybe it's him. He's in chrysalis, bloated in his own becoming or suffocation or whatever the fuck. The thing is, he doesn't need a god and might be a king, but he's also a man with a pounding headache. He tries again, his mouth shifty, like cornmeal, like ash. Harrison. What do kings do when they get migraines? Buy a donut? Eat a saint? His eye sockets are vacant, his cuticles spinning into one another, hair sentient from the pool. Harrison. The walls smell like Jeremiah's hair gel, Jeremiah's fingerprints, Jeremiah's latest cologne. In a minute, the paint could start peeling and Harrison could pick up the chips, tack them to his jaw like they're gold stars or little hello, my name is stickers. Hello, my name is, hello, my name is, hello, my name is, Harrison, Harrison, Harrison. He kneads his cheeks like he's sourdough, pinches his eyebrows, goes Harrison, sticks his fist in his mouth, tries again, Harrison. Jeremiah knocks on the door, says something about leaving soon, a friend waiting on them. They're going to go party. That's it for me. It is cold. I'm going to go inside. My battery's dying. Thanks so much for watching this. I will see you guys later. Bye.